So good afternoon on that note. Welcome. Good evening. We have a few new faces, so I'm going to just give you a very brief on CSEP. CSEP is amongst the larger, perhaps the largest independent, multidisciplinary, policy-oriented think tank. Essentially, we take pride in our non-political nature and our scholarship. Almost all our work is informed by research that we do, and also, of course, the informed engagements that it generates. It's We have a lot of papers, and you'll find some of those outside. They're also on our website. All our studies are available free for the public. It's something that, and of course, they're also a part of our writing. They're also part of many reports, publications. Recently, we have been actually focusing more and more on reports because we are finding that's a big gap in our understanding of various parts of India. And so we recently came out with the copper report, which was quite well appreciated. We've just come out with a report on China's engagements across South Asia, for which there's a conference being held just across the street. And we've also come out with this report, which is probably the first on governance related to the digital ecosystem. It's something that we have been interested in, working on digital issues for some time now, especially since Deepak joined us. I'm not sure whether what was the precise date when you joined us, but he's sometime
I know the date.
years back. Somehow you started appearing more and more. So then we take that as the joining date.
Okay.
So since I'm really grateful for you for doing that, because it's been something that we've been working on trying to look into India's digital domain, because we all know that it's not just the economy. Almost all our interactions, whether they be social or economic, are being determined in this space. We know that it's only going to grow. All the transactions, payments, just name it, and that part of the economy is, if not already on, will be on the digital space. So with that being the space, and that being in a sense the motivation, I was a bit confused on who really regulates the digital ecosystem. And that was a conversation that Deepak and I had, I think, about a couple of years back, which gave rise to this particular work or study, where we said, let's just start by logging who all are trying to regulate, what are the gaps, and of course, what are the overlaps as well. So I think that led to it, and I'm very glad that this report has come out finally. It's gone through some amount of review process, and we have a very, very painful review process. It's very painful for me, for sure. It's also painful for the authors. But anyway, so with that, so I'll ask, I think, best for Deepak to now share with us your major findings. And sure. So so this format essentially is a fairly informal one. We have Chatham House rules. Well, not really Chatham House rules in the sense that you are welcome to share everything. And in case you're all comfortable with it, we may put the proceedings onto the net later, but that's only if everyone is comfortable with it. And I will start by requesting Deepak to give his brief on this. And then I would request our panelists to give their views on that. And then after that, there would be a Q&A. So the way I'm going to start is that I think 20 minutes for you. Then I'm going to request Mr. Ghosh. You don't need any introduction. But for those of you who still require Mr. Ghosh's introduction, I mean, he's the person who started it all.
People would have forgotten.
No, not really. Not really. Who started it all? And then, of course, we have Shweta, who's been in the domain in the private sector, and also you have been meddling with the government. So you have Sridhar. Sridhar is online.
Yeah, Sridhar is there, and
Okay,
Ajay
sorry.
Sahni is also there.
Okay, and we have Mr. Ajay Sahani, who's the ex-secretary of METI, And Sridhar is an academic. And Sridhar has been here. We all know you, Sridhar, and you are our resident expert almost. So thank you again for being here. And I'll just request Deepak to take this forward.
Thank you. Thanks, Laveesh, and thank you everyone for joining us today. By the way, so I mean, I've known Mr. Ghosh since about 98 when he used to be at Electronics Niketan as secretary, and then he did move to textile briefly before he moved to Telecom. And those days he used to say from a move. So oftentimes people would ask him, how was the move from IT to textile? And he would say it's same. Earlier it was software, now it is software. So anyway, so this is the brief presentation on this report, which is available on our website. And so let me just ask one question, which is not about telecom or digital. So in case suppose there's a dispute related to airport user development fees in Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore. And so we know that there's a body called AERA, Airport Economic Regulatory Authority, under an act. Where would the appeal land up there after that? Any idea? The appeal would actually land up at some place called Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal, not too far from here at Samrat Hotel. And how and why, we'll just come to that. So that's just one of the quicks. Anyway, so this is just the structure of the report. I don't want to spend much time on this. So, I mean, we know about Digital India started on 1st of July 2015 as a program by the government, and then these 3 pillars. And then, of course, the numbers keep on changing every month, every day, every quarter in terms of UPI, Aadhaar, etc. So that's fine. But what's happening is this. What you looked at, that yes, there's a telecom, very broadly, there's IT, and there's broadcasting, information broadcasting. And there are some correlations, some overlaps across these 3. But when we are looking at Digital India in terms of 2047, Viksit Bharat, etc., is our existing, the prevailing extant structure of these institutions, which is the ministries, departments, and the regulators, tribunals, etc., standardization bodies, etc., as well as the instruments, which are the policy instruments, are they good enough? Are they in sync with the times or not? That was a starting point here. Now, since the title itself uses the term institutions and instruments, let me just clarify how we are framing, how we are using the term institution as well as instrument. So institution, basically, effectively here we are meaning is any public authority or agency. It could be a constitutional body, it could be a statutory body, or for that matter, it could be even be an intergovernmental body, both within India or for that matter, even at a global level or regional level. Now, instrument could be of different types. Obviously, we do have, so it's a formal text adopted, proclaimed, prescribed, or ratified by the state. Of course, there's a constitution, but we also have other policies, including programs, policies, and plans, etc., by different names. There could be laws. So, for example, Indian Telegraph Act 1885, Telecom Act 2023, IT Act 2000, DPDPA 2023, etc. Rules and regulations. Some are sector specific, some are beyond that. For example, allocation of business rules under the 1961, media ethics rules, which just got notified last week, the amendment. And of course, there could be treaties, whether by Council of Europe Cybercrime Convention, or the last year in November, we had the UN Cybercrime Convention, mutual legal assistance treaties, different type of things. So what is happening is this, that there's a lot of convergence which is happening. So today, if you see an advertisement of a phone, it's not really about the phone. It doesn't say that the voice is very clear, how many people's phone, what is the length of the, let's say, the memory of the phone book, etc., which used to be, by the way, 25 years back. Those were the features that people would actually advertise, that, okay, you would store 256 phone numbers, which was a big number, by the way, those days. So mobile is not just for making calls, you're doing all sorts of things on that. And then there's your financial services, there are also smart devices, which are beyond mobile. So there could be CCTV, there could be Internet of Things, home solutions, etc. Now, what is happening at the consumer and business level is this. consumers are using these things. And businesses are also, for example, the same company could be offering you a telecom connection. The same company could also be offering you e-commerce, payments, etc. However, when it comes to governance, we've got this whole plethora of institutions and instruments. I don't want to read through the long list, but very broadly, you have a telecom, which is under the union list in the Indian Constitution. There's a broadcasting, which is also in the union list. Now, IT, by the way, doesn't figure anywhere in those lists. And the obvious question could be why and how. So the IT did not exist in that form in 1950 when we adopted the constitution. So as such, it should have been with the central government, with the union government, because we do have an Article 248 under the constitution that residuary powers reside with the center. So if there's no such thing in any of these two lists or any of the three lists rather, the concurrent list, the residuary powers are with the center. However, much before the Electronics Niketan sort of housed the Ministry of IT, that time in 99, when first time it was renamed as Ministry of IT from the erstwhile Department of Electronics, where Mr. Ghosh served as secretary earlier. Some of the states already had set up IT departments. First one being Andhra Pradesh in 97 and Karnataka, Maharashtra, a few others followed soon after. So effectively, my hypothesis is, for about 15 years now, that IT in this country has become almost like a de facto concurrent subject. So when we look at institutions and instruments, of course, in the telecom, again, we have something broadcasting and IT, but by and large, all of this rides on something under the Indian Telegraph Act 1885. Now, most of the people, including most of the lawyers, by the way, and the officials, they believe that everything in India started only from 1885 onwards. However, I would request them to please read the first line. The first line says, an act to amend the law relating to telegraph in India. That means there must have been something prior to this. And this is what prompted me to look around and dig deeper. So what we found an act of 1876. Then that also says an act to amend. We went further down, 1860. Went further down, we found 1854. And by the way, the telegraph board in this country was established in 1853. So this was before 1857 that we had this particular law, at least one in telecom, and few more followed. And where we are today. So broadly, if you look at the current system, there's something happening in telecom department, something happening across IT, something across I&B. But what is happening is that we do have certain challenges. And these are 5 broad categories in which we have put those. So state capacity. So as I mentioned about TDSAT. And by the way, TDSAT doesn't do just telecom and airport economic. They also are in charge for Data Protection Board of India. As and when it becomes operational, they'll do those appeals as well. And they are already burdened with the broadcasting sector since 9 January 2004. By the way, the composition remains same, 1 chairperson, 2 members since 2000 when TDSAT came into being. We have an underutilized digital Bharat Nidhi. I'll come to this later, which, by the way, Mr. Ghosh was the first administrator of that, and which was earlier known as USO Fund. There's ambiguity around ownership and accountability, for example, OTT, non-personal data, etc. But it's nothing new. Way back when in mid-90s, when DOT gave licenses for paging services, All India Radio, even before that, gave away its own frequency to some private companies to start paging services using those days, using something called FMRDS technology. If you have an IPTV, if you want to do IPTV business, you take a license from DOT, but you also get registered with INB. There's also confusion among stakeholders. On 15 September 2015, we had come out with a draft encryption policy, yet to see the light of the day. There's been time and again concern around online content creators as broadcasters, whether to do, not to do, etc. And of course, there's a regulatory overreach examples like indirect control of regulation of TV channel tariffs by TRAI, which is actually only for carriage, but it's an indirect segue there. There's internet shutdown, who will do, how they'll do, virtual digital assets. We have seen how things have evolved, crypto, etc. So adverse impact of this whole thing is there's a fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And of course, we continue to have persistent digital divide. So the first telecom policy, it came in country in 1994 May. And one of its objective was that by 1997, we shall have a telephone in every village. Yet to happen, by the way, more than 31 years later. Now, this is just one example. So Digital Bharat Nidhi, this is from their website. So if you see, the green bar shows the collection, the blue bar shows the disbursement, except for the year 2008-9. The collection have always been higher than the dispersal. So effectively, the yellow line shows the cumulative corpus, which is standing almost $10 billion today. And so effectively, our understanding is that we do have a lot of money, but not enough capacity to actually spend it, to invest it in efficiently and effectively. So lack of money is not the challenge. Something else is. So if we see the governance of digital ecosystem, we have applied a 3C framework. We came up with this. So there's a carriage, which could be wired or wireless network. There's a content, which could be voice, video, data, which all of us know. And of course, Prashanto is here. He started something called voice and data 31 years back in 94. But I'm saying, let's go beyond that. There could also be touch, taste, smell. And who knows, a great lawyer could even argue that telepathy also comes under telegraph license, because after all, you're using Hertzian waves. And beyond that, we have got conduct. So competition, cybersecurity, data protection, sustainability, these type of things. Now, this is just a comparison. We also looked at how other countries are stacking up. So this is the India's rank across different type of indices. Some are scores, some are ranks. But you can just see the comparison where we stand vis-a-vis select countries there. Yeah.
Sorry, could you just elaborate? Why can you be 0.5? This is rank, right?
This is a index which has
an index value.
Yeah, okay. That's right. Yeah. So if you see, others are also in different. Then global benchmarking we did in terms of institutions as well as instruments. So obviously different countries have got their own system, whether there will be one ministry, whether there will be multiple ministries, how they are structured, different things. But by and large, we have seen that either they already are doing IT and telecom and broadcasting together, or actually going towards that. In some cases, even IT. For example, Singapore. They had two different bodies. One was called IDA, Infocom Development Authority. The other one was called MDA, Media Development Authority. About 8 years back, they merged both of these, called IMDA now, Infocom and Media Development Authority. And so if you see in any of these countries, things are similar, I would say. Of course, for example, in UK, they had 5 different regulators. And after we introduced the Convergence Bill 2001, they introduced their bill. And within 2 years, they had moved to something called Ofcom, which does not just telecom, IT, broadcasting, but also online safety. They also look at newspapers, postal, courier, everything. One regulator, Ofcom, Office of Communications. And here, if we see the instruments, so of course, there are different laws and regulations in different countries. And of course, in the present past, there's much more activity across the board, irrespective of which country you look at, except US, where not much is moving in that sense beyond the executive orders. Now, so ultimately what we looked at is that there are broadly 3 options as a country that we have. One is obviously we can continue with the status quo. So but suggestion would be to have a better coordination mechanism for something like a FSDC in the financial sector, which is Financial Sector Development Council. So across the 4 regulators, they can work under that mechanism. The advantage is that, yes, it preserves the existing expertise, but the flip side is that stagnation and conflicting regulatory signals, as we have already seen. Another suggestion is to consolidate these activities across carriage and content across 2 different ministries. So take out take the telecom part from the Sanchar Bhavan, from Shastri Bhavan, you can take mostly the broadcasting part, I would say, at least the carriage part, put them together as carriage in one place, and take all the content from Methi, from INB, and from a little bit from telecom, whatever they are doing, put that all in one place. So put carriage in one place, content at another place. Third option is a little bit of Big Bang approach, which could be one ministry, one law, one regulator, one tribunal. Now, it's natural that one may think that it's a too atrocious, too ambitious a thing. And while writing this report, frankly, last year when I was doing this, I thought, okay, this is our idea. Lo and behold, not so. So this is something that you may like to see. Communications should be transferred to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting to form the Ministry of Communications, Information and Broadcasting. Now, where does it come from? So we know about something called Administrative Reforms Commission. About 17 years back, it was formed. Mr. Veerappa Moily at that time, of course, even today, he's a sitting MP. That time he was made the chair. They came about a whole lot of reports. Looking at those reports, I did not find anything interesting there in this respect. But I saw something that it says second ARC, second Administrative Reforms Commission. So that prompted me, okay, there must have been a first one, just like I looked at the other laws. So I tried to find out where the first ARC reports. Couldn't find physical copies. Finally, I could come across something at National Archives and at DRPG. And there I came across this thing, a report of 1968 September. This is the first ARC report. It was titled The Ministry of the Government of India and its Procedure of Work. And this recommendation that I showed you earlier, communication should be transferred to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting to form the Ministry of Communications, Information and Broadcasting. So this was way back in September 1968 that they had thought about it, more than 57 years back from where we are sitting today. The other interesting thing about this report is that there was also an action taken report, which I could not be able to locate yet, which was actually tabled in the parliament a few years later. So these are the three broad suggestions that we have. Of course, there's a lot more in the detailed report for you to look at, but that's where I would like to stop. And this is just again from a former Nobel laureate called Bob Dylan. The lines there are blurring, so inspired by them, with due apologies to him. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So may I now request Mr. Ghosh to give your comments?
Well, I think I am the least competent person in this room to give comments on a presentation made by Maheshwari. Because when I became Secretary of Ministry of Information, before that I was in textiles. So I tried to find the convergence of the two. And I found software was common to both. So in the vagaries of government posting, you may be in DGFT today and communication tomorrow. But you have to pretend you know everything. So my first message in taking such an assignment was, please treat me as an unpad in your sector. Teach me what you are doing and let me see what I can do with it. So it's better to do openly that I am unaware. The civil service postings have no logic behind it. So today you are in one chamber, tomorrow you are another. But I must say at the same time, it gives a lot of challenges. It gives you a vast arena to work on. You gather knowledge. How much you gather depends on you. However, to cut a long story short, when I went to Ministry of, at that time it was known as Electronics, DOE, Department of Electronics, I used to tell them that please teach me what you're learning. The first thing they took me to was SCL in Chandigarh, which was a basic chip making company with, I think, hardly 30,000 wafers a year. And it had also got burned down. So we tried to revive it. But then the chip making company requires a lot of investment. So we tried to invite foreign Foxconn and others. But the day Foxconn came for a presentation here, sorry, I'm digressing. In the middle of the presentation, power went off. So this is not the place to come for chip making. A nanosecond disturbance will completely disrupt the whole process. That assembly line goes what? So in this background, when I went to the Ministry of Electronics, Department of Electronics, the first thing I suggested was, why don't we converge electronics, broadcasting, and telecom? So my colleague said, in the name of convergence, you want to take over all the departments of Government of India. That is part of civil service. But I'm glad that some steps have been taken. We used to talk of digital divide. Now we are talking of how to reach out to the remotest village, although that was also one of the items of our agenda. The basic point I would like to make, that whether you like it or not, digitalization is coming. It has come already, in fact, in many ways. So it's better to go with it than to resist it. As the famous economist Schumpeter said, these are gales of creative destruction. This is creating something out of what has happened in the past. And we have to learn from that. But the first lesson which we should learn, we should not work in silos. We should not have turfs. Firstly, in civil service, turf has no meaning. Tomorrow you may be in home, day after in defense, you can go on. But basic point in governance is, why should you have so many ministries, departments with so many people? Secondly, we tried to adopt the FCC model. Now, FCC had the Federal Communication Commission, mainly dealt with communications, and we got into data security. So I came to the belief that no governance is the best governance. Let people find their way how to seek solutions. But there has to be some rules of business. And it is in this context that governing digital India is a challenge. It is a vast territory. First challenge is, how do you reach out to all the villages, the remotest corners? Otherwise, you'll have digital divide. You have digital haves and digital have-nots. You'll create another conflict area. So you must reach out, cover all the villages. I don't know how many have been covered now. That was one of the programs when we were there, to cover the entire country with wireless, if not wireline. Now, one can't do one without the other. Unless you have wireline base stations, wireless will take you to a certain distance. Of course, SATCOM was the revelation thereafter. But broadband services will require some broad connectivity. And it is this context that the challenge of digital India is to reach out to the remotest villages. The technology is there for us to develop, and the applications are there. We have a lot of youngsters who are working in small hole-in-the-wall in startups, who are coming up with tremendous solutions, which are to be seen, to be believed.
Sir, on that note, I mean, we'll just show another round later on that. So may I now request Shweta, your intervention?
No, I think fascinating conversation, and I'll try to adapt it to today's world of regulating AI, which is the hot topic. And it's great to have two former IT secretaries on our panel today. And I spent 2 hours with the current IT secretary just last Saturday, Mr. S. Krishnan. And I think I'll give a slightly flip side to the conversation on multiple stakeholders, because while it is a big pain point for us as policy professionals to be navigating what I often call the corridors of power and understanding which stakeholder is your stakeholder. And I often, when I coach founders, so quick background, after about nearly 2 decades in the media, I switched careers and moved to public policy. And I led public policy first for Uber for the region, followed by Salesforce, and then Sequoia Capital India, which is a large venture capital firm now called Peak 15. So I think especially my stint with Sequoia gave me a chance to work very closely with the Indian startup ecosystem and about 100, 150 founders who now lead large startups. Now, just last year, I set up my own forum called the Startup Policy Forum. Today, we represent about 60 of India's startups that are together valued at about $90 billion. Most of them would form as part of Digital India. They're mostly largely tech-oriented startups. So I think doing this for a living, I can tell you that at one level, and I can see PK here, Prashanta here as well, for those who are FTI consulting or SPF or anything that we call it, the one thing that we often do for our founders now is stakeholder mapping. And if there weren't multiple stakeholders, there would be no stakeholder mapping. So So it's a good exercise because we often tell them, so, to give an example at Uber, the first thing you would say is, who are you going to go and meet? Are you going to meet Nitin Gadkari as the transport minister? Or are you at that time was Ravi Shankar Prasad as the IT minister? And, the answer is it's okay to have both. Because while we want to say that, Uber is not a transport company, it's a tech company who wants to meet the transport minister, the truth is that when you have to get to the RTO, you ultimately is the minister because, when you need their approval, you will have to go through. So I think it's a function of India being what I call work in progress. And governance is work in progress. So when India is work in progress, public policy is work in progress, you will have multiple ministries. So I think even at Uber, we said, yes, let's do the stakeholder mapping because Niti Aayog is a stakeholder, IT ministry is a stakeholder, transport ministry is a stakeholder. And then we started talking EVs. So, heavy industries ministry became a stakeholder. So, your stakeholders keep increasing. And I think it's a pipe dream to say you'll have a single regulator, a single governance mechanism, because I also think that's what keeps the Indian democratic, fabric very alive. And to give an example, just a few hours ago, I was at TiCon where we were discussing deep tech, and this year's theme is deep tech. It's the flavor of the season in any case, but I think everybody wants a share of the deep tech pie right now. And, just again, the multiple ministries we're working with on deep tech. So there is obviously the Commerce and Industry Ministry, under which DPIIT comes, under which startups come. So naturally, Commerce Ministry and Minister Piyush Goyal is a stakeholder, right? At the same time, because given it is so technical and scientific and it's all about research and development and you're working with startups that probably have founders who have double PhDs, you're going to have the Department of Science and Technology. So you know what? You also had the Secretary of DST, Dr. Abhekar Andekar there, and he's a stakeholder. But you know what? METI has a startup hub, and METI is the one that is also governing deep tech. So METI is a stakeholder. So already you have multiple stakeholders, but, and then Niti Aayog has a frontier tech, a division. So Niti Aayog is a stakeholder. So I think the point is that sometimes it is confusing and it is daunting for us in the policy ecosystem to go to multiple ministries. But I'd like to always see this as an opportunity rather than a crisis, because sometimes you find champions who are, very top level senior bureaucrats. Like I keep saying that I see two here in the room. I worked very closely with Mr. Ajay Sahni during Uber. He launched one of our key campaigns. So I can see him smiling there. And I have that lovely photograph of him doing a launch when we, I think, launched, if I remember correctly, our campaign to go from cash to cashless. So it was True Digital India. And I'm talking about 2017, when 80% of transactions on Uber were on cash. And look at where we are today on Digital India in terms of the UPI penetration. And I think it was one such program that Mr. Sahni had helped us launch. So, with secretaries, I think it's important that for us, we look for champions and champions in the governance ecosystem. And sometimes, Deepak, having those multitude touch points is helpful rather than hurtful. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, thank you.
But,
that note, I mean, that's a very interesting insight. May I request Professor Sridhar for his remark?
Thank you, Mr. Laveesh. Deepak, this particular report on institutions and instruments is very well done. I mean, I must say that he has chronicled 170 years of institutions and instruments. Kudos to him. I have some comments. I mean, basically about the recommendations. So, for example, he has provided two recommendations. One is two ministries, and the second one is one ministry, one law, one regulator, one time, right? I would like to propose OM cube, one ministry, multiple laws, multiple regulators, and multiple tribunals. I mean, Deepak has mentioned the Administrative Reform Committee report, but I don't know whether he has mentioned the Communications Convergence Bill 2000, in which I think during that time, Mr. Ghosh was also probably the Telecom Secretary at that time. The Communications Convergence Bill also advocated the merger of the Information Broadcasting Ministry with telecommunications. So there has been some precedence, as Deepak has mentioned earlier. Now, the question is whether we combine all these ministries into one ministry, and what is the purpose behind it? The purpose is to enable the, Deepak has mentioned, the conduct. For example, conduct of AI, conduct of data protection, conduct of cybersecurity. These are all horizontal in nature, and therefore this has to be sort of proclaimed by one, and it has to be under the probably an umbrella of one ministry in order to make it effective. However, the individual verticals such as telecom, or for example, regulating OTT, regulating content, or regulating cyberspace may be very, very technical, and it requires the expertise of different regulators. I mean, it is another reason why, for example, Federal Communication Commission regulates both media content as well as carriage, because they have the capacity. We don't have regulatory capacity at the individual level. As Deepak has mentioned, TRAI is also BRAI, Broadcasting Regulatory Authority of India. So it is having too much on its plates. So it is better to split the regulatory function according to the technicalities, and therefore we have multiple regulators, and you have tribunals. TDSAT is handling everything, and therefore it is very important for us to diffuse the tribunal, the grievance redressal mechanism, also behind each regulator, so that the regulated issue can come to the tribunal if there is any dispute. So this is one thing that I would advocate, and that is my point here. Then we can come back. It is OM cube, Deepak. Over to you.
Thank you. That's indeed, there's much food for thought. And so may I now request Mr. Soni for his intervention.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. And I think I was just reflecting on the what happens with the multiple ministries and what kind of different challenges they really have to handle. Because telecom really is dealing with the giants today. So that is the defining characteristic of telecom, dealing with giant entities. The INB, of course, the word that comes to mind is sensitive. Something happens in media, and it's very sensitive. It has to be sort of handled in a very different way. And METI is spread all over. METI is with R&D, with startups, with AI, with cyber security and data protection. In between, as Shweta reminded us, we were also handling promotion of digital payments. So it's a very different kind of, and then, the promotion of basically startups and trying to make them big. All kinds of deep tech areas, anything that is starting to come in, we sort of tend to get involved. So it's three very different kind of sort of job charts currently. And it's very tempting to look at Singapore. But then, our size and complexity is far, far more. So Deepak has had a wonderful view of everything that is happening. Many times, when we've had some confusion in whether it was public service delivery or in convergence, we have asked Deepak to come in and just sort of, let's let's brainstorm. Let's think of what are the options and how to go about doing this. It's very tempting to think in terms of one ministry. Actually, if one could, one wakes up and finds that there is one ministry, it seems to be such a wonderful thing. The governments have played with various formats. Even with Telecom and METI, there are multiple times when one minister has headed both, trying to bring about convergence. There was a telecom commission now, called differently, where everyone sort of sits together, and that's another form of convergence. So it is tempting to go beyond those part solutions and look at a single ministry, but probably at this point, two ministries is looks to me a little more feasible. I would love to find an elegant way to sort of combine everything in one ministry, but it's fairly complex. And I resonate with Shweta, when she says it's sometimes having multiple entities is also an opportunity. So I think we should also have much wider consultation. We should rope in the viewpoint from the industry. We have to grow the industry. The minimal kind of regulation that METI has exercised. Many people say that IT has grown because it was not too tightly regulated. So IT and beauty, they used to say, have been successful. So how do we go forward with something which is still light touch regulation? Because when we combine very strongly regulated things with areas that are better left lightly regulated, how do we find a way to do that? That, to my mind, is a major issue. So I'll stop at that.
Thank you. I mean, on that question, indeed, some very insightful comments. When I look into this sector, I find, and also in this report, there are 2 or 3 larger issues that somehow I feel constrained by, and some of those thoughts were also, shared by you, Mr. Ghosh. So first, there are areas where you have duplication happening. So how do you align? Or for that matter, there are areas where I don't know which entity to go to because it seems to be a gap, right? Now, the framers of the Constitution, when they got Article 248, they essentially thought of that between center state, and then they said, okay, fine, whatever doesn't come anywhere else goes to the center. Somehow that's really not happening in this space. So that's one class of problems. The other is this issue of siloization. Now, if you have multiple entities, which is fine, but if those multiple entities are siloed, then it becomes very messy. Then only large organizations such as yourself, Shweta, can actually interact. The small guy really loses out.
Sure.
That's a second class of issues which I find our current system is losing out on, and it impacts the small guy the most always, right? The third one, and that's the most famous of all, is the fact that we've known now for 20, 30 years, since the telecom space has been there, that there are these dark spots. They are in rural India, they are in urban India. We collected money from them, but somehow never did much on it. TRAI has not been very successful. The RBI and TRAI don't align on many things, etc. So the same things are playing out in one sense, right on that dark spot problem, where we don't even have estimates, but some people say that somewhere between 15 to 20% of the India's population cannot really undertake financial transactions because of these dark spots. Now, that's a fairly large number. So how should we address that? And I'm going to go across the panel, starting with you, Mr. Ghosh.
Yeah, I have a small observation in this. The software industry in India grew because of NASSCOM. See, it was an industry-driven initiative. Government came in later on with whatever was required to set any rules or regulations. But if you have no rules and regulations, or bare minimum, bare bone rules and regulations, give free hand to the human enterprise and it will flourish. Thanks to NASSCOM, IT has been recognized as India's forte. And I was proud to be associated with it. And there are wonderful people in the industry. They're not all going for, self-interest. Many are interested in the country. Look at the Narayan Murthis and others who have made fortune, but have also dedicated themselves to the country. So least governance or minimal governance is something which I, as a bureaucrat, would like to advocate, having seen the other side of the fence.
Thank you. May I now ask Mr. Sawhney on this particular thing, and I'll pick up one specific issue on encouraging and enabling interdepartmental or interregulatory department, interorganizational interaction in this space. How would you mandate it? Or
Actually, to be frank, all the while I was in METI, I was also, of course, on the Telecom Commission. But I used to joke with friends that, there's some tunnel between Electronics Niketan and Sanchar Bhavan. And I actually offered a reward to the scientists of METI, find this tunnel and put a big steel plug somewhere there. So that, because many generations of officers actually slipped into that tunnel and, landed up in Sanchar Bhavan. And I was petrified that, that might happen all over again. So there is such tight regulation that defines Sanchar Bhavan that, it's very different. So I think the idea of lighter regulation really has to be given much greater chance. The tighter regulation, we do get some results with that, but I think the costs are also very high. So whatever
Mr. Sawhney, Mr. Sawhney, but may I again go back? But that does not solve the problem. That's many times the departments don't talk to each other, even with lighter regulation.
Yeah, talking to each other is absolutely essential, and I think with an active leadership, PMO and Cabinet Secretariat and Niti Aayog, I think we do have significantly more sort of coordination and convergence happening today as compared to many periods in the past. So when it comes to a very serious issue, I think we do pull together in some way. And for instance, we had to, do PLI. And PLI is not something that could have been the, production linked incentive for electronic manufacturing. It's not something that could have been done by METI alone. So everyone pitched in, everyone supported. And the institutions like Niti Aayog were really, found at their very best in, we really wouldn't have been able to pull it off without that and support from Cabinet Secretary and from the PMO. So to some extent, convergence and coordination have to happen. Whether it will best happen through a single ministry, I still have a few question marks. I think we should find, the best 2 or 3 alternatives, flesh them out a little more, and then have lot of consultation with the industry and other stakeholders, because the convergence can happen at various layers. So at what layer do you want to converge? Do you want to sort of, create a hard marriage between, the lightly regulated and the tightly regulated, which to my mind, is a bit difficult.
Thank you. And that gives us the topic for your next paper, Deepak, I think. Man up.
Can I just
Yes, please.
You see, one of the way which prevented convergence was the question, how will you deal with the 2 ministers who will become surplus? Where will you post them, find them post? This is in a lighter vein, but there are imponderables in the way.
Thank you. Shweta, now may I ask you, but I'd also ask you to focus on one question as well, which is how does a small player negotiate with this complexity?
I tell them join SPF. So at the cost of doing a shameless plug. But on a more serious note, I think, Mr. Ghosh brought up NASSCOM, and I think Startup Policy Forum has been set up with a very similar intent, sir. I think the idea really is that we felt in my years of doing public policy, I felt that, we call ourselves the NASSCOM for startups now, because we do think that NASSCOM played a stellar role for this, IT services industry. And, I think Indian industry is now divided into 3 clear constituents. There's corporate India, or I would say, India Inc., as we call them, which is obviously your large conglomerates. And Laveesh, to your point, they are the biggies, right? They know how to do their policy. They have their tasks cut out in some ways. They also have legacy institutions like CIIT helping them much more. And they also have the machinery and the wherewithal to be able to work with legacy institutions. Because think of it today, a large institution like, say, a Mahindra Group or others, they have the ability also for Mr. Anand Mahindra, just to give an example, just as to be, say, a CII president for a year, to do that. Today's startup founders don't have that ability. Imagine a founder sitting in Bangalore who's building a startup for whom every day matters. For him to sit in Delhi and do these consultations is just not possible. So 1, they do not have the time. 2, they do not have the inclination. 3, they do not have the budgets to hire, I would say, talent like all of us. So I'm saying I understand how the big tech, the India Inc. ecosystem works, because having covered media and covered all of them over the years, the CIIT presidents and all of that, how that ecosystem functions, it's a very well laid out. The second ecosystem that's very well laid out is what I call the big tech, which is all the large US multinationals, or in some cases, anyway, because they have the US IBCs and the US ISPs, but more than that, they have very well sophisticated functioning teams. I have been part of it with Uber and Salesforce, and you today look at a Meta, or you look at an Amazon, you look at
may I correct you? We know that.
So that is what I'm saying. Today,
the small guy
still needs a champion. So what I was just coming to the point that you should divide industry into 3 parts. Number 1 is India Inc., or the large corporates. Number 2 is your big tech. They're a large part, right? Your Googles and your Amazons are fueling digital India today. So you cannot, much as we'll have our moments of sovereignty and our moments of nationalism, they're a very large part. And they have a very well functioning policy ecosystem. What is completely broken and lacking is for the startups. They do not have a voice at the table. They do not have a seat at the table. They're not engaging. I am shocked myself, because today it's 10 months since we've set up the platform, but most government stakeholders haven't deeply engaged with the startup ecosystem. Right. So I think that to sum up, the answer is that they need platforms. They need to do, and it's not just on the government. It's as much on them. I coach the founder and I say, yes, much as you cannot spend days in Delhi, but you have to move out of HSR layout and Koramangala. And, there is a world is get out of your echo chamber and, come meet government. There's a reason why we remember, again, some of the older, there was a time when Mr. Mukesh Ambani and Mr. Anil Ambani, at the height of those gas wars, every week they were in Shastri Bhavan, so you have to understand that you have to play, you are new age nation builders. You've got to engage with government.
Thank you. So that's our second topic. Yeah, of course. I'm going to Professor Sridhar. I mean, I'm saving the most powerful for the end. So, but so I think that's another gap that is there. That how does the small person or small entity interact with such a complex system? Professor Sridhar, on this thing, should we go back to the convergence debate, or should we actually focus more on inclusion?
Ah, see, I mean, inclusion mandates convergence. That's what I would say. I mean, in the sense that you cannot have a telephone without, OTT players playing on top of it, right? You have to have secure your telecommunications and things like that. So I think that these two are not separable. So inclusion comes with convergence in today's context. And I'll go back to the point that you present about dark spots, right? So, for example, are we including everyone? I mean, in telecom, for example, right? The problem is that the resources that are required to provide inclusivity is lacking. For example, the low band spectrum, which is very much required for remote areas, is not present, and therefore there is a lack. There are dark spots. It's a policy initiative, right? So, for example, how are we fixing reserve prices for auctions and things like that? So that is a common one, right? And of course, spectrum is a scarce resource, and everybody wants to get spectrum, and therefore the model that I think Deepak has also mentioned is one ministry under which this scarce resources such as spectrum or the areas which cover more than one area, more than one segment. For example, the data protection have to be governed at the ministry level, right? So that this inclusivity aspects can be addressed. For example, I mean, how much to give to telecom, how much to give to broadcasting, and things like that. Of course, some things like spectrum span across ministries. For example, defense and space and so on. And therefore, these have to be converged at the PMO office. I mean, that's how I'm envisioning for inclusion. You have a PMO office under which all these ministries come in. Then you have one ministry for information, broadcasting, and IT, because they consume most of the digital India. And then under that, there are specific sector-based regulators who govern this, including appellate tribunal. So this structure, in my opinion, might provide inclusivity as well as convergence.
Thank you. Before I open up, Deepak, would you?
One small remark, can I?
Yeah, sure.
This is spectrum management is the key for this sector. Suppose we do away with all the governance and have only one authority to manage the spectrum. And then you allot the spectrum on certain transparent basis, and then let the industry do with the spectrum what it thinks best.
Thanks everyone for your thoughtful comments and critique. So just 3 points. Number one, between 2001 and 2016, we actually had not just a common minister, we actually had something called Ministry of Communications and IT. It is however, a different thing that between 2001 and 2016, although there was a Ministry of Communications and IT, no, sir. I'm going beyond that, Dr. Garg. I'm going beyond that to something more substantive. And that is, despite the fact that this ministry itself was about telecom and IT and internet and everything, ministry level, at that level, this ministry never had its own website. So that's one thing. Second thing is, when I'm saying one regulator, it doesn't mean one regulation. A single regulator can also have disproportionate level of regulation. Some, as was mentioned by Mr. Sahni, as tightly regulated, some as lightly regulated. The other point is in terms of a single ministry, etc., is only one, that in 1968, why did they not recommend merger of MeitY with that? Because MeitY just did not exist. Department of Electronics started only in 1976. If it had been, probably they would have done that as well. And the last thing I would just say to what Mr. Ghosh just mentioned in terms of spectrum. Spectrum is the only natural resource that every single country in this world is endowed with the same amount. Whether you are Haiti, whether you are Fiji, whether you are India, China, US, doesn't matter. It's a scarce, but at the same time, it is reusable, it is non-perishable, so it's got certain other characteristics as well. Now, when 2023, we got this Telecom Act 2023, one of the objectives, not the only objective, one of its objective was that it will help in terms of right of way. Please go and look at the statement of purpose for the 1885 Act. Again, right of way was one of the major things even at that time. So few things, lot has changed, but few things haven't really changed. Thank you.
Thank you. On that note, I'll now open for questions. So essentially, please keep the questions brief and also mention who you would like to answer that. And also please identify yourself.
Prashanta Roy, I'm a public policy advisor, like Shweta, former journalist who moved into public policy, joined NASCOM, etc. Now I'm advising in the policy tech energy space. I think just two quick points. One is, I think Ajay's point where, ministries do work together where required. We are finding that that works the best when it is driven right now from the PMO. So things which are happening when they're driven from the PMO, whether it's E20 or whether it is, data localization, etc. Things which should have been completely with a sector or with a, either MOF, RBI, but no, it was driven from the PMO. So when that is not happening, then the size of the ministry, weight of the ministry, like MNRE is relatively lightweight compared to MOPNG. So when the two clash, there's no question which, okay. My larger point is on when we are looking at the complexity of 5 or 6 different ministries for the same area, and then you have the states. And data centers is an example. Now you have hyperscalers coming in, you have this huge Google thing in Vizag. The problem is this intersects across multiple ministries. Okay, they are huge power guzzlers. So there's power, there is of course METI, there is DOT, TRAI, which has also published a paper and so on. But the states are actually the implementing entities. So things like the National Building Code, which is causing a lot of delays and so on for the data center things, is actually implemented kind of from BIS through MOVA at the state level. And the problems are sitting there. Power is a huge issue. Power and telecom interconnected. If you have a CLS landing station breakdown and it goes offline, that kills the grid, because a hyperscaler going offline out of the grid and, or going to backup or whatever. I think my point here is that if any thoughts on how to address this, and one way we have suggested is, issue guidelines. I mean, I can understand that METI has said that, look, we don't want to step into and, give directives to states, okay, on things like, okay, building code and so on, not our area, but maybe best practices, guidelines, something which states can, because some states have gradually figured out things, okay, Maharashtra, 50% of data center capacity is sitting there, okay, Tamil Nadu has also done fairly well. Any thoughts here on that? Is that a better way to go about this? Because clearly this one big ministry thing doesn't work so well.
Thank you.
I think I will respond to that.
Sure.
Right of way was a big issue.
Yeah.
And it was essentially with the states. So the states were also, we had to get them interested that if you give right of way, this will come to you faster. They have to demonstrate to them their interest in getting this done. Then the response is very fast. Especially some of the forward-looking states came immediately and said, yes, right of way is a must for whatever you do. So that you have to sensitize. The actual working is done at the states. So you have to sensitize the states. And right of way can be done, for instance, with R&B also. You put the cable right in the middle of the road, nothing will happen with it. Right. So that was one option we were exploring at one time.
One quick intervention there. Agree with Prashanto's point that I think for most regulations, especially where it is a state subject and where states have to take over, like for instance, we used to find the issues around transport being a state subject. Every state has its own guidelines. I think it's very important to have the center have some overarching guidelines. To your point, that it really becomes a base document for states to follow, and sometimes we also realize states are very lost. They don't know how to regulate, and in the absence of any central guidelines, what happens is that every state is doing their own thing, and then you have complete, like you're actually dealing with 30 countries, literally like that, when from a policy perspective, because everybody has their own thing.
Thank you.
So
Hey, thank you very much. Very interesting discussion and good to see Mr. Ghosh and Sani and old colleagues. I'm Vikram Tivatia from COAI. So a couple of things is that I don't know whether it's covered. We are priding ourselves on having launched 5G rapidly and dying to get into the bus on 6G. So it's good. One of the things is we talk too much and do too little. But how do we address this? The point is, now, digitization by itself, because today's discussion is on digital governance, I guess. So countries which have digitized across verticals stand to benefit from connectivity. I mean, just so if you want to improve, your sanitation systems, India, the biggest producer of milk, it's got a very short shelf life. Unless the whole system is digitized, you will not be able to exploit the network which has been put out. So 5G, particularly from COI, we were very keen, and earlier days in duty, there was a committee set up with variety, at least minimum JS level officers, to see how to implement it in agriculture, in automobile, in industrialization. Because until you digitize different verticals and have the data, it's only then you can squeeze the data, or a startup can actually, develop a service or an offering. So we had, in the NTP 18 with
may I request you to
quite,
the question?
Quite well. So here's the help that we need from folks around. We managed to get with Aruna driving the NTP or digital connectivity, what is it? NDCP. Yes. And I'm curious why it's gone back to being called a telecom policy again, right? We put there as a digital readiness index of states. The idea was that a lot of dependence is on states. Investment has to be on state. So if we publicly give that ranking, it is a name and shame. So that when you say happening Haryana, come to Orissa, invest in Bengal, any investor would like to see how the availability of the digital infrastructure. Because whatever you do today. Now, unfortunately, the secretary who was handling it at that time, Minister Vaishnav, was very keen, but Delhi was coming number one.
May I request you to get to the
right. But here again is all the advocacy people here. If the National Digital Readiness Index is launched, it will help substantially in the effort of digitizing. I mean, the digital network being used better.
Okay, thank you. So I presume that's not a question. That was just yes, sir. Could you make it very specific and to the panelists, please?
So happy to see you, sir. And so my point is whether
identify yourself as well.
I'm Dr. Garg. I work with Cohen Advisory.
He was with Meti.
Yes. So my point is that what I have observed in my 24 years with the government and working cross sectors, more startups and services and others, is that is promotion should be the key, or governance should be the key to India's ethos around digital. If you consider that 20% of the national global economy will be digital, there's a huge economic opportunity that lies. What we did best in the digital era is through EarnNets, bringing internet, through CDOTs, bringing in small telephony, through the spectrum policy, getting the cheapest data rates in this country. We had created through PLIs, ramping up our manufacturing. What we have done is we have created capacities whenever we focused on promotion rather than regulation. Just finishing off. On the startup space, one of the very starking concerns, I started with the startup policy, Mighty Startup Hub and all that, is that we do not have a system of bringing market to the startups, to bringing rupee capital to the startups. And if we all get them into the mirage of throwing off the real money game startups off the hook in 1 day and 3 days, and all that, and that's the concern. So we should be more concerned about promotion policies rather than the governing policies. That's my core issue. I can talk on it.
Thank you. May I request Mr. Soni and Professor Sridhar in that sequence? We'll take that up later. Thank you. On your comments related to both of these questions that were asked against.
See, one point, I might be digressing just a bit, but one point which I do want to make, this is such a wonderful forum, these are all people I have worked with over so many years. The spectrum has so high an importance today that it's important to see how we can also have some alternative things which are available to everyone. Fiber to every home is something that we have really missed out on. Having taken up all kinds of programs, probably fiber, through the BharatNet, we have tried to carry fiber to every Gram Panchayat. Gram Panchayat is not what uses the fiber. Supposing there were to be fiber to every home, just the last mile. Imagine the kind of power it gives. Imagine the kind of alternative, at least for certain kinds of communication that gets built. If there can be Har Ghar Bijli, Har Ghar Jal, why not Har Ghar Fiber? It is, it would enormously provide an alternative to the problem of not being able to reach, whether it is through 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, maybe even 6G. The expenditure on those, on the 5G and 6G would be enormous, and they will never really reach the rural homes. So this is one possibility. And to my mind, that is the cheapest opportunity available to all of India. Because once that happens, it doesn't enable only the head of the household who normally carries a phone. It enables the women, it enables the children by providing a hotspot, within the homes. And then the kind of participation, the kind of energy that would unleash is absolutely mind-boggling. So I just wanted to leave that one point. It's
that's a very, very, very critical point. Thank you, Professor Sridhar.
Yeah, I'll just answer very specific to Vikram's question. That is how to spur growth of digital requirements so that we can make use of technologies such as 5G and 6G completely. There are two initiatives which are being done. One is, of course, the startup ecosystem, which basically works at diverse sectors, including agriculture, transport, healthcare, and things like that. And therefore, they are the source of innovation for creating demand across all these sectors. The second one is the concept of the digital public infrastructure, which we are trying to promote. For example, the ONDC, the Open Network Digital Commerce, account aggregators, and these are all initiatives wherein the data can come to the public domain and it can be used, analyzed, and it can spur growth for private networks or networks which are very specific to meet certain demands. The third important thing is the non-personal data. Of course, the non-personal data was not included in the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, but if non-personal data, as propounded by Mr. Nilekani and others, is that comes into picture, then a lot of these proprietary data which is available with the big tech firms and also large firms will come into open, and that will give enough incentive for the telecoms to build verticals or private networks to meet specific demands. Those are the three recommendations for Vikram's question.
Thank you. That's again, I think that's our third paper. Yes, Mr. Ghosh.
Fiber to the home was one initiative which had been taken, I think, 20 years ago. Because whatever you do through a satellite or anything, the backhaul has to be a reliable media. So somehow, I don't know how it worked out. I have lost touch.
Okay, so so I'm going to collect all questions. Please make them very, very, very brief, please. Yes. So there are gentlemen here. There's one at the back, and yourself. Three. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, good evening. I'm S.T. Sharma. I've been working as a Senior Fellow of the Election Commission of India and International Institute of Election Management and Democracy in Dwarka. We have been handling the largest digital communications and the digital networks in the world. 1 billion voters, voter connect through voter education systems. And my daily mailbox, I take about 3 hours to clear when I connect with the global information flow. Guys, first of all, I must congratulate.
Sir, I'm so sorry. I have only 5 minutes left, so if we can make it very, very brief.
I'll be brief.
Thank you.
I'll be brief, very brief. I must congratulate for bringing up this report. A similar report was released by ICRAER also, the State of Indian Digital Economy. See, what is being attempted is that what we have, how to reorganize this on the basis of some needs, coordination, trying to improve on it. But we must start from the other end. The enormous volume of data, the usage unleashed by digital world in our democratic setup. And we are not able to appreciate that. Unless you appreciate that, there's no use doing all these exercises. It's my daily, I got information, but what I would like you to look at is in this report, in case you want to have, first, you must handle the disinformation. This is doing the biggest harm to my country. We in India, we are on the top of disinformation as per World Economic Forum report of 2024. Worst. And we are doing nothing to handle this. Anything which deals with the digital governance must look at the disinformation campaigns. 2, digital literacy. We have done nothing for digital literacy. It must be inclusive. I mean, it's simply by learning from one another. We have done. I had worked out a model of voter education, especially 1 million.
Sir, I'm so sorry. In 4 minutes, I need to close this, and there are 3 more people, sir. I'm so sorry.
Just closing.
Thank you so much, sir. So very quickly, if you can.
Number 3, net neutrality. Net neutrality and democracy is one of the very important issues. I think these 3-4 dimensions must be. And last point would be piecemeal, slipshod, short-sighted approach will be always harmful. It can be all right patchwork. What we did is I drafted the questionnaire for center-state relations, the Second Central Election Commission. We should have a proper commission who would look at it, all the aspects.
Thank you very much, sir. I have asked, Neni has taken notes on your points, and they will definitely be something that we will look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Really enjoyed the conversation, and My name is Inder Pal Singh. I work for this business publication, The Ken. I had a chance to look at Mr. Maheshwari's report. It was really exhaustive and comprehensive. So I have a brief question about what are the challenges that AI brings to competition. So yesterday, Google launched formally. And so what is happening in India is we are not innovating at the foundation tech. And what our startups are doing is they are building on top of like the global players. So, are we developing enough guardrails to protect our players when we are developing on top of the global tech?
Thank you.
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
take
that's
that
my
on,
question.
please. And after her. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Saloni from Trustbridge Rule of Law Foundation. I just have one question: is where is the separation of power then between the MeitY and DOT, like, and the regulators? And another question I want to ask is that we've been talking about tribunals, but do we not need reforms in tribunals, especially when there are so many vacancies vacant, and you need efficiency there as well? Do we really need tribunals? Is what the question is.
Good question. Thank you. Well,
Thank you very much. So to Mr. Sani's point, right? So the two parts. So one is taking fiber to every home. We have an alternative. It's called fixed wireless access, right? Which gives you bandwidth or throughputs equivalent of fiber. And our members, like, the telcos are doing very good job, because maintaining fiber, to each apartment or to every home, not that easy. But this is fiber in the air, and our members, the telcos, are doing a pretty good job of that. Right, that is one part. The other part is that who is going to consume it? India has 250 or 70 million people on 2G. Who are outside this, whatever, benefits of digital.
Point well taken, sir. So I'll just close it there.
We need some policy to those guys.
There's some questions have been asked, and I think all the panelists, I would also ask you to give your closing remarks, and also in that process also answer the queries. Starting with you, Mr. Ghosh.
Well, there have been a lot of interesting issues that have been raised. And I will certainly look forward to such issues coming up in a broader system. Fiber to the home was one of the agendas. It doesn't mean we'll give to each village, each home a fiber, because that will be waste of investment. Sorry?
That was Ajay Sani's suggestion. I was responding to that.
That's okay. Let's let it be.
So fiber to the home is an issue. To the extent we can, we should. But beyond a particular thing, for instance, covering up so many villages in the country with fiber and then going to each house with fiber is not practical.
Shweta.
No, thank you. I think it's been a stellar discussion. In the interest of time, I'll keep it short, but maybe the answer to the Ken question, happy to chat with you offline on, of course, there are concerns around data and whether the large AI companies are going to be just using the data taken away. But I think I can tell you from our conversations with MeitY, what we understand is the government's very well seized of what is going on. But they are very dedicated to saying that there will be a foundation model built in India and data to be, they're aware of the concerns.
Thank you.
I just released a report on the competition.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sridhar?
Yeah, tribunals are very much required because they are before the court. We don't want to go to court all the time. The second one, AI regulation on the foundation models, we don't have to reinvent because they're all resource constrained, and therefore we build models on top of it, and there have to be guardrails, much like the EU AI Act.
Thank you. Mr. Soni, thank you for your patience. I mean, thanks.
Yeah, sorry, on what issue just now?
Just, I mean, your closing, any thoughts that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I think it's important to be having this debate about convergence. In between, we have sort of stopped, really, we have grown to accept what is there. And this churn is absolutely important. So, and I think it has to involve multiple stakeholders. It has to become a much wider debate. And we have to really, I agree with Dr. Garg, that it has to be promotional. Promotional has to be the key element that we take forward with the light regulation, and find the way to achieve that through whatever is the institutional or ministerial mechanism.
Thank you. Over to you, Deepak.
So just a few remarks. One is on the Maharashtra having 50% of data center capacity. It's driven by two factors primarily. One, because of the concentration of the financial sector services there, which are used early users. But the second one is the concentration of most of the capacity of the submarine cables within a very small area in Mumbai. And that's where data centers find it much easier. On 6G, the government of India had set up the task force on 6G in 2021. In August 2020, about almost a year back, I had actually written, India should start work on 6G now. That was the title of that particular article. State Digital Readiness Index, Vikram, as you mentioned, this is something that reminds me of what during Mr. Ghosh's time we had started, called State E-Readiness Index. 4 editions in 2002, 3, 4, and 6 and 8 had come, but after that it's sort of done. Yeah. And the other one is just on the issue of electricity and bandwidth, which was mentioned. So this is something that reminds us of one of the founder president of NASCOM. And I remember at the event organized by Prashanto Devang Mehta, the late Devang Mehta, he actually had coined this phrase almost 30 years back, Roti Kapla Makan Bijli or bandwidth. So in that way, and I think as Mr. Sani mentioned that yes, this is something that requires a lot more discussion and debate. And that's why as a think tank, we are not saying this is the only way. As I also mentioned during the presentation, you just come out with 3 different suggestions going forward, that these are the 3 options. There are certain pros and cons, irrespective of what we choose. And ultimately, it's for people for more debate, discussion, and hopefully some decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I must say to all the panelists, it's really been a privilege to have you here. And we've already gotten a lot of questions for our future work. And I think we have our work cut out, and hope to see you again very soon on some of the other questions that have come up. And to all the participants, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
One last remark.
Yeah.
We all talked of convergence. When we started talking of convergence, Mighty was accused of trying to take over all the departments of government of India.
Thank you.
Good one. Thank you. May I request everyone to just hold up their thing if you have that.
Yeah, I have one as well.
We have the picture, please. Mr. Sani, I can't see your face. If you can.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Deepak, I just got it on time.